What's happening, guys? This is Versus Z bringing you a video review for Iron Man Mk.VI from the movie series figures for the Iron Man Mark II movie. These figures are 3 3/4 inch. They're about the same size as a G.I. Joe or a Marvel Universe figure or what have you. Pretty much Hasbro's new lineup of scale figures, 3 3/4 inch. But these I find are probably Hasbro's masterpiece 3 3/4 inch figures. They're very detailed. The price range are like $6.99. For better figures, of course, it gets higher. But $6.99 is the base price for these figures. You can get them at Target, Toys R Us, or Walmart. But I just look anywhere else where they would sell comic book related figures. These figures are also direct downscales of the 6-inch figures that came out a couple years ago for the first Iron Man movie. And when I mean downscale, I really mean downscale and nothing else. I don't mean a downgrade, just a downscale, because they pretty much have the same amount of articulation as the 6-inch figures, aside for a couple, like maybe a double jointed elbow, which the 6-inch figures have, but these don't. But other than that, let's start talking about some of the details, the accessories, and let's go over the very limited articulation, and then I'll get to my final thoughts. I gotta say up front, one of the bigger things I love about these smaller scale figures, as compared to their 6-inch figures, is they're a lot more detailed for some reason. Even though they're smaller, they're definitely a lot more detailed, and it could just be because of, well, the time at the 6-inch figures came out versus the time these came out. Obviously, there might have been some new kind of technology to improve molding and just detailing and things like that. That could be a given, but as you can see, it's got way more detail. And another thing I noticed is these smaller figures seem to be more in proportion than the 6-inch figures. The 6-inch figures looked more like the skin, looked more like the armor was a skin. But these guys, they really look like a man under an armor. As you can see, he's got more bulk in his shoulders and everything. His legs look a lot more beefier than the skinny legs of the 6-inch figures. If you have those 6-inch figures, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, some of the detail in this figure is just really awesome. These figures, of course, are small, so there will be some paint defects. So really, you just gotta look out for the best of the worst. This one, I think the only defect I had was a chip in the gold paint on his his right bicep. And that's pretty much it. I like everything else. I like the gold. I like the red on his armor. He's definitely got a glossy finish, which does pose a problem, and I'll talk about that in a second. The gloss finish is nice, but like I said, it does pose a problem. I don't think they could have done any better with this figure, except for maybe these joints here on the thighs, or his hips more like. But we'll talk about it in a second. But as for the detailing, it's really nice. One thing I noticed, and I think this is probably just a barcode or something, but there's a series of numbers right there on the inner side of his right thigh. It could just be a barcode or something for the toy, but just seeing those numbers very clearly, well, you can't see it clearly on the camera, but in person, even from where I'm looking, the distance from me and this figure, it's very clear. And that's just a little something that kind of shows how detailed these figures are. So I mentioned the paint and the glossy effect poses a problem with articulation, and it does by a lot. Because the finish is glossy, the paint is a lot thicker and it's a lot harder to move. These figures are already stiff and harder to move as they are, so just having that poses a problem. His arms can rotate. The problem with the arms is they have this soft rubber plastic thing here, and it gets in the way a lot. So you can swing his arms around 360 or whatever, but getting them out from the body without forcing it, because if you do force it, that thing will pop off, is about right there. So you get an elbow bend as well, not quite 90 degrees, so it's kind of disappointing. And you also have a swivel at the elbow, and the hands, which are much in better proportion compared to the 6-inch figure, rotates on a swivel. And then you can see his arc light right there in his palm. It's really nicely detailed. It's got slightly black outlining, which is nice. He has a ball joint at the waist, ball jointed head that can rotate side to side only. Once again, I mentioned this area here is a problem. It's an issue. If you have the 6-inch figures from before, not even just the Iron Man figures, but other Marvel figures. It's this weird rotating and swivel joint. I'm not going to waste any time trying to move it around because it is such a pain, especially because of the gloss finish. But the legs do have some articulation, but it really sucks just because of the fact that it's so hard to move around. There's a swivel at the thigh. There's a double jointed knee bend, which is really neat because it has that extra piece of armor. And as you bend the knee, it kind of covers this little joint here, and it's kind of masturbate-ish, if you know what I mean. The foot can rotate a little bit, go up and down a little bit. So articulation is great. The legs suck. It's really, I don't know if there's really much to complain about, but it's alright, it's decent. Alright, so now let's talk about his accessories, and this is where it starts to get kind of fishy for me, but well, let's get to it. His articulation is alright, but it's something I could live with. But his accessories, all the figures in this entire series come with the same stand, which is kind of a knock against these figures, and 3 armor cards, which 2 are clear and 1 is a solid white backing. And they're basically used for, if you have multiple Iron Man figures from this series, you can use them to basically create your own Iron Man armor. So there's a little bit of play factor with these, aside from just having the figure itself. Another thing it comes with is this arm-mounted missile launcher, or these missile launchers. Plug it in, fires at a fair amount of strength, and you can plug it into either forearm. But for me, this is one of the more useless ones, because I personally would rather just have a repulsor blast effect part rather than this, because it doesn't make sense to me, because it's a movie figure, you know. I kind of want it to be simple and more real. So if they could ever release one, a Mk.VI figure with an effect part, that would be awesome. I'd definitely pick that over these things any day. So accessories, they're cool. I think the stand is one of those things that you must have, though. Alright, so with all things considered, this is a $7 figure. It's 3 3/4 inch. Can I recommend them? Well, first of all, I got the Mk.VI because, for one, for me to start this review series, I kind of wanted something simple, something to start as a baseline for references for other figures. And, well, I just wanted him anyway. I just wanted something simple. I didn't want anything too over the top in terms of accessories and things like that, especially because he's a movie series figure. And it just didn't make sense to me that he'd require any like crazy double missile launching accessory or whatever like that. I'm happy that he has a stand, and I don't mind the cards. The missiles are something. The missile launcher thing is something I don't care about at all. So I'd have to say, oh, and the articulation, it's something to be asked about, but I can live with it. But anyway, I got my money's worth. I really did. Like I said, I just wanted something simple, and I was looking for something simple, so I'm happy with them. But can I recommend them to the general consumer or a comic collector? Probably not. A lot of you are probably going to be thinking, $7, you know, I probably want to make my money's worth. And there are more figures in this series that are much more worth your $7. Like, maybe you don't want a simple Iron Man figure. Maybe you're going to be waiting for a bigger size Iron Man figure, and, you know, that's fine. But there are other figures in this same line that are definitely going to be more worth your $7. So I can only recommend this to people who want a simple Iron Man figure, and all the other Iron Man suits like the Mark III, 4, and the 6, this one, are probably the simplest ones you can find. The Mk.V is totally something different, by the way. So with that said, I hope this helped any of you guys who are trying to decide on what figures to get. I will be reviewing more. But yeah, until then, I'll see you guys next time when I review War Machine. Thanks for watching, guys.